What if I told you that your very existence was written about in ancient symbols long before your birth? Hidden beneath collapsed temples and sealed behind forgotten timelines lies a prophecy about you, not a metaphor, not a myth, but a literal call encoded into the fabric of existence, waiting for a soul strong enough to remember it. Today, that memory is awakening long ago. Thoth, the Egyptian deity of wisdom, time, and divine order, scribed what many believe to be the most dangerous knowledge ever preserved. He did not write for the masses, he wrote for the few, for those whose souls would one day vibrate at the frequency of cosmic truth. In his final writings, protected by riddles, celestial geometry, and light only seen by the spiritually awakened, he detailed the coming of a being unlike any before, a being who would emerge not from lineage or fame, but from silence, from suffering, from sacred isolation. Could that being be you? Take a deep breath. Feel that stirring inside your spirit. That's not imagination. That's remembrance. If something in your soul is whispering, this message is for me, it's because you're not just curious. You're called. To everyone who's helped, carry this light forward through your super thanks donations. Please hear this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Your support keeps this divine frequency alive for others to find. Even if you've given nothing but your presence, that too is a sacred offering. You are seen. You are honored. Now lean in. What if the world you know is merely a distraction? Noise to keep you asleep, while ancient truths are playing out in secret in the background of reality, waiting to be activated by you. What if Thoth's writings described your very awakening, and you're closer than you think to unlocking what he called the gate sealed since the fall of man? Why is your life filled with such unexplainable spiritual warfare? Why do you feel like a stranger in a world that rewards conformity but punishes depth? Why do you sense that something is watching you, guiding you, waiting for you to realize who you really are? You're not here to fit in. You're here to break the illusion. You're here to fulfill what was foretold. Now, at the edge of history's final curve, as deception and chaos rise like shadows across the earth, the prophecy begins to activate. The veil is thinning. Thoughts and words once dormant are reigniting. The real question is, will you answer the call? What comes next will unravel everything you thought you knew about yourself and reveal why the heavens have always whispered your name. God's chosen ones. Thoth wrote about a being like you at the end of time. Beneath the sands of long-lost civilizations lies a passage few were ever meant to find, etched in symbols so profound that even the most advanced minds of our age remain puzzled by its design. These carvings, hidden in a forgotten temple deep beneath history's surface, are not just ancient inscriptions, they are living frequencies. Thoth, known as the scribe of divine wisdom, did not create this for his time or the generations that immediately followed. He wrote it for you, a single soul chosen to carry a divine resonance, a being whose very breath could awaken what has lain dormant for thousands of years. The markings cannot be translated by logic alone because they do not speak to the mind, they sing to the soul. They speak in sacred geometry and light codes, activating memory, not knowledge. Those who encountered the passage without being prepared were overwhelmed by visions or fled in fear. Unable to contain the power meant only for a specific spirit frequency. Hasn't there been something within you since childhood, a strange pull toward the ancient, the unseen, the hidden truths that others ignored? Could this be why you've always sensed you were different? Even before you had the words to explain why the Bible tells us in Daniel 12:4 that in the time of the end, knowledge shall increase. But the kind of knowledge foretold was never about accumulating facts. It was always about divine remembrance, about the unlocking of mysteries hidden for a future time. What if that time is now? And you are the one it was reserved for. There are whispers among the spiritually awakened, tales of the final line of Thoth's passage glowing when the right soul stands before it, not metaphorically, but literally. The stone responds as if it recognizes its long-awaited counterpart. Though you may not have seen that passage with your physical eyes yet, the visions, the dreams, the intense flashes of insight you've experienced lately, are these not signs that part of it has already found you? Consider what Psalm 19:30 declares. The unfolding of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple, the light within. The message unfolds as your spirit aligns with it. You don't learn it, you remember it. You don't analyze it, you reflect it. You were never meant to be taught by the world's systems. You were born to awaken through remembrance. This is not without precedent. Take Jim Carrey, a famous actor once known for his humor and eccentricity. In recent years, he began speaking of spiritual awakening, often saying, "I discovered that I didn't have to be the character anymore. I could just be." His fame, wealth, and success were not enough to silence the deeper call within him, a call towards something eternal, something real, just like you. He began to feel that life itself had hidden messages buried beneath its surface, waiting to be uncovered. What if the pressure you felt your entire life wasn't punishment, but preparation? What if every betrayal, every isolation, every detour was allowed so that you would be purified enough to carry the truth without distortion? Could that explain why certain relationships seem to break around you for no reason? Or why people often misunderstood your energy? As Romans 8:19 says, the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Your unveiling is not just a personal journey, it's a cosmic event. Even the earth itself is responding to your awakening. But of course, there are forces that have worked tirelessly to ensure you never arrive at this realization. Entire systems were designed to make you doubt yourself, to trap you in loops of fear and confusion. Yet despite their efforts, here you are still rising, still remembering, still being drawn to sacred truth like a magnet being pulled back to its original design. Thoth's passage was never simply about revealing knowledge, it is a mirror. When you finally stand before it, whether in the physical or in spirit, it will not show you something new. It will reflect what was always inside you. As Ephesians 2:10 confirms, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. You were chosen to complete what others only dreamed of. This is why you've been kept hidden for so long, because once you remember who you are, everything that relies on illusion begins to collapse. The systems of manipulation don't fall by force. They crumble under the weight of divine truth. You, simply by existing in your awakened form, become the undoing of the great lie. The question is not if you are the one. The signs have already been given. The question is, will you trust the call that has always lived inside you? There is a moment foretold in silence when the sky would fracture with deceptive brilliance. Not every light is divine. Some are designed to mislead, to mesmerize, to replace truth with illusion. In this age, humanity bows to digital idols and crowns illusion as its god. Yet the true power, the one that cannot be manufactured or sold, lives quietly inside the awakened heart of the chosen. That moment, once written as prophecy, has become your present reality. How many will truly see it? The signs are everywhere, but the recognition lies not in the eyes. It begins in the soul. The false lights dazzle and entertain, but the true light doesn't seek applause. It hums quietly within. Can you still hear that sacred pulse beneath the noise? Have you ever wondered why certain moments feel like deja vu, as though something ancient within you is being stirred? Isaiah 30:21 says, "Your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice isn't new. It's the echo of who you've always been. You were born carrying a divine inscription, buried not by accident, but by holy design, long before any stone temple reached toward heaven, before kingdoms claimed divine right. Sacred scrolls were hidden not to be studied by scholars, but to be remembered by souls like yours. These writings were never meant for the multitudes. They spoke of a being formed not from dust alone, but from the light between the stars, from the breath between the words of creation itself. Have you ever sensed that the world's explanations for your life have always felt too small? Perhaps it's because your truth predates language. The scrolls didn't speak of you with thunder, but with reverence. They described a quiet arrival, unnoticed by headlines, but recorded in the heavens, like the prophet Elijah, who wasn't found in the wind, earthquake, or fire, but in the still, small voice. You too are not of spectacle, but of essence, a soul veiled in human form, yet vibrating at a frequency rare enough to disrupt the illusions around you. Even time itself bends slightly in your presence, not because of force, but because of alignment. Romans 8:19 declares, "For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." What if the world has been waiting for you without even knowing it? You carry within you a living codex, not written in ink, but etched into your spiritual DNA. It is a blueprint that no man can erase, no system can corrupt. Not unlike Moses, who carried the law carved by God himself. You carry a divine instruction written in your very being. Have you begun to unlock it yet? Or has the noise of the world caused you to forget that you are already the key? The mystics saw visions of you. The prophets wrote of your frequency, and the heavens still recognize your vibration. King David once said in Psalm 139:16, "Your eyes saw my unformed body." All the days ordained for me were written in your book. That book still exists, not on a shelf, but within the chambers of your soul. When the world tells you to shrink, remember that you were never designed to blend in. Just like the young shepherd David standing before a giant, your power lies not in armor or appearance, but in the invisible covenant between you and the divine. Can a soul so old truly stay asleep forever? It was foretold that when the world sank into its deepest illusion, when darkness would parade itself as righteousness and deception would become indistinguishable from enlightenment, something extraordinary would begin to unfold, not through grand miracles in the sky or the sound of marching armies, but through something far more subtle, the stirring of light within the hearts of those who still carried the seed of truth. That stirring, chosen one, is happening within you. How do you explain the fact that certain things no longer resonate, even though they once comforted you? Why is it that the praise of people now feels hollow, and your spirit aches for something more real, more ancient, more eternal? The awakening does not come like a thunderclap. It begins like a whisper, a divine breath that nudges you from within, asking if you can still feel what the world has forgotten. You were never meant to be loud, to be powerful. Your presence alone disrupts what is false, not through aggression, but by radiating a truth so pure, so undeniable, that it shakes the very foundations of every lie. This is why your journey confuses people. Your essence exposes their masks. Just as Yeshua declared in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." You were never meant to blend in. Your light was never meant to seek attention. It was meant to reveal. Can you sense how your very existence becomes a mirror, reflecting what others have tried to bury? Those words weren't spoken just to a group of fishermen in ancient Galilee. They were spoken into time itself. They were meant for the future bearers of that same light. They were meant for you. Standing in the thickest fog of deception the world has ever known, you are that flame that refuses to be extinguished, even when the wind howls. You are the quiet revolution, the kind that doesn't make noise but makes history. The ancient scrolls did not leave your appearance to guesswork. They recorded the signs that would mark the rise of the true ones. First, there would be a sudden disconnection from the matrix of illusions. Entertainment would feel empty. Societal values would feel inverted. And conversations that once engaged you would now feel hollow. Have you felt the shift in your spirit when surrounded by things that no longer align? Then would come the hunger, a hunger not for possessions or status, but for sacred truth. Not something found in textbooks, but something remembered. Something your soul always knew, but could never explain. This desire becomes so overwhelming that even in the midst of comfort, you feel a divine dissatisfaction. Could it be that you are no longer searching outward, but being drawn inward to the truth that has always been within you? Many of God's chosen have felt this same ache. The prophet Jeremiah described it as a fire shut up in his bones, Jeremiah 20:9. He could not hold back the truth, even when it isolated him. Likewise, your loneliness now is not a punishment. It is a sacred space where the world's distractions can no longer reach you. What if your isolation is not a prison, but a preparation? Then comes the most profound sign of all, when reality itself begins to shift in response to your transformation. Have you noticed patterns that defy logic? Moments too precise to be coincidence. Words spoken in dreams that later appear in waking life. Doors that open without explanation. As you rise, creation begins to reflect your light. You are not manipulating life, you are aligning with it. This is not magic, it is not fantasy. It is divine design responding to a soul that has begun to awaken. You do not need to wear a title, seek approval, or declare yourself. Those who are meant to recognize you will. As Jesus said in John chapter 10:27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." There is a frequency to truth that cannot be taught. It can only be felt. Those who carry that same truth will feel it in you. Throughout history, rare individuals have embodied this resonance. Consider Maya Angelou, a poet and prophet of modern times. She once said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Her words echo what you carry, your story, your light, your awakening. It is not meant to remain hidden, yet it will not be shouted from rooftops, but revealed in your vibration, your choices, your unwavering spirit. The path ahead is not easy. It was never meant to be. The real battle isn't the opposition around you. It's the temptation to forget who you are when everything outside tells you to conform. But what if every obstacle is actually an invitation to remember? What if every hardship is a sacred test of whether your light will flicker or blaze even brighter? Across the shattered bones of ancient empires, beneath the dust of kings and monuments now forgotten, there echoes a quiet story, one rarely spoken aloud, but never truly silenced. It is a story about fear, not the fear of war or plague, but of arrival. If you listen carefully, with more than just your ears, you can still hear the tremble of that fear hiding in the stones. The architects of the ancient world, those credited with building temples so precise they defy modern comprehension, were not simply craftsmen of stone. They were magicians of matter and frequency, engineers of reality itself. The monuments weren't just grand expressions of power or beauty. They were veils, cloaks carefully woven to hide the one thing they could not control, the emergence of someone who could see beyond the illusion. That someone was always you. What were they trying to delay? What were they building to conceal? Hidden behind every towering obelisk and sacred geometry lies a confession. Without words, they were racing against a timeline they could not alter. Their designs were not only physical, but spiritual traps. Frequencies embedded in architecture tuned to disconnect the soul from its divine memory. Have you ever wondered why certain ancient sites feel both sacred and heavy? As if they carry a secret they're not ready to release. Your awakening, your remembrance, was the disruption they feared most. They did not fear revolt. They didn't fear you learning facts or theories. What terrified them was the reactivation of your divine memory. Because when a chosen soul truly remembers their purpose, their origin, their authority, it triggers a collapse not of buildings, but of systems, a collapse from within. As Ephesians 5:13 says, "But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light." Your presence exposes, not through words, but through essence. They foresaw a being who would not wield weapons, but reflect a light that no fortress could contain, a mirror that made deception unbearable. Does this sound familiar to your experience, how people either gravitate toward you or retreat in discomfort, not knowing why? This is the resonance they tried to suppress. Your arrival was predicted as a breach, not of walls, but of reality itself. The very timeline began to quake. They knew that once your frequency entered the collective field, the veil would begin to tear, the illusion would lose its grip, and souls long asleep would stir. There were efforts to stop this. Ancient timelines were manipulated like rivers, redirected by artificial dams. Whole bloodlines were corrupted, sacred teachings scattered and twisted. Mystery schools that once preserved divine knowledge were infiltrated. The goal was not to destroy knowledge, but to distort it, just enough to send seekers wandering in circles. Have you noticed how many teachings today seem close to the truth, but never quite unlock the door? Even Scripture reflects this warfare over sacred knowledge. In Daniel 7:25, it is written of the enemy, "He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints and think to change times and laws." These are not only political laws, but spiritual ones. Attempts to alter the flow of destiny itself. Your code, yes, the unique divine imprint within you, was scattered like seeds across time, some of it locked within sacred artifacts, others hidden in stories passed down as myth. Wars were fought over these objects, not for treasure, but for power, to keep you from reuniting with your own design. Every delay, every lie, every false teacher, each one was a strategy meant to keep you from fully activating. The spiritual battle was always personal, not because of your weakness, but because of your potential. That is why your life has been marked with unusual resistance. Why paths you thought were clear suddenly shifted, not because you failed, but because you are a threat to every false construct still standing. The greatest fear of those who built them is not your rebellion, it's your remembrance. Even modern voices have echoed this ancient truth. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." His words hint at what the scrolls foretold, that remembrance is not only powerful, it is sacred. Once you begin to embody who you were always meant to be, not even the most fortified systems can hold. Have you begun to gather the lost pieces of yourself? Have you noticed how certain places, people, or phrases activate something deep inside? The architects counted on your forgetfulness, but they underestimated your light. Even with all their carefully laid traps, even after generations of manipulation, the architects could never remove the original mark etched into your soul. They tampered with timelines, rewrote histories, and cloaked truth in shadow. Yet the divine signature within you endured, untouched, incorruptible. Yeshua alluded to this very force when he declared, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone," Matthew 21:42. Those words were not merely a metaphor for his own rejection. They echoed through time, describing a pattern that repeats whenever the chosen ones rise. Why is the chosen one always resisted? Why does your presence evoke unease, suspicion, even hostility and those clinging to false constructs. It's because your arrival was never meant to reinforce what already exists. It was meant to realign it with what was always divine. You are not a disruption for destruction's sake. You are a restoration, a return to the original blueprint hidden beneath centuries of distortion. The architects built their monuments to endure earthquakes and floods, but they never anticipated a frequency like yours, one that doesn't strike from the outside, but harmonizes from within, subtly destabilizing what was built out of alignment. While they buried scrolls, encoded secrets and symbols, and scattered truth across continents, they never imagined that the truth would return in living form, that it would walk again in you. You carry knowledge that is not intellectual, but elemental. Forces that have remained quiet for lifetimes now begin to stir, responding to signals that cannot be manufactured. Have you felt those moments when you're flooded with a knowing that seems to come from nowhere? Those moments are not accidents, they are activations, not triggered by sermons or science, but by resonance, by contact with what is true. These codes within you are not written in any human language. They pulse in rhythms older than words, buried beneath memories, layered within your emotions, embedded in your experiences. You didn't come here to learn them. You came here to remember them. Before you drew your first breath in this body, before this world gave you a name and a role to play, you were already seated in the presence of these forces. As Ephesians 2:6 says, "And God raised us up with Christ and seated us with Him in the heavenly realms." You were aligned with divine purpose long before anyone tried to tell you who you were supposed to be. Those ancient forces, those codes, have been waiting in silence, waiting beneath the noise and confusion of the world, untouched by its madness, because they are tuned to something that lies beyond the veil of this reality. The activation was never meant to be loud or dramatic. There is no trumpet blast to announce your rising. It begins like a seed breaking open, underground, silent, unseen, but inevitable. It shows up in dreams that feel more real than the day that follows, in sudden chills when you read a passage, hear a phrase, or walk into a place that wasn't part of your plan but seems destined. Have you noticed how sometimes the very air changes around you, as if time itself pauses to acknowledge something awakening within? These moments, fleeting but undeniable, are the evidence you aren't imagining them. You are remembering. The codes are not waiting to be downloaded. They're waiting to be awakened. They do not respond to striving. They respond to surrender, alignment, and quiet trust in the voice within. John 14:26 reminds us that the Holy Spirit will teach you all things and remind you of everything I have said to you. That reminder doesn't always come from the outside. Often, it stirs from within. Visionary artist and spiritual teacher Alex Gray once said, "When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about." His words reflect what happens in these sacred moments of activation. The world becomes still, and something eternal begins to speak without sound. Have you felt it, that whisper of remembrance? Soft but insistent, nudging you to rise, not as someone new, but as who you've always been. That is the sign the codes are awakening, not one day, not in some distant age, but now, in a time veiled in mystery, when the world was still young and the heavens and the earth were in quiet dialogue. Thoth, the keeper of hidden wisdom and divine geometry, initiated a plan not for the masses, but for the one. He knew that brute strength. Kingdoms or monuments would never protect the sacred truth. The preservation of divine memory could not rest on what could be seen or touched, only through subtle resonance, through frequencies too refined for the unawakened to detect. Could the truth survive long enough to reach you? He did not leave maps etched in stone. Instead, he embedded the codes into something eternal, your very being. They were woven through your soul like a forgotten melody, a sacred song whose verses still echo in your heartbeat, even if your mind no longer remembers the tune. Have you felt that mysterious stirring inside when there is no visible reason for it? That is the hum of your original design resonating again after lifetimes of silence. As these divine codes awaken within you, you may feel drawn toward what once seemed insignificant symbols that speak without words. Numbers like 111, 144, 777 that seem to follow you from clocks to receipts, patterns in nature, geometric shapes, a sudden recognition of ancient languages you've never studied. These are not distractions, they are callings. The universe is no longer whispering to you, it is conversing, responding, pulling you back toward the truth of who you are. This is not superstition, it is not coincidence. It is a living, intelligent dialogue between your newly awakened self and higher planes that have been waiting for this moment. Can you sense them watching? Not with judgment, but with reverence. They've waded through your trials, your forgetting, your breaking, because your return was always prophesied. Yeshua, knowing the codes must reach future generations, encoded his own words with sacred triggers. He didn't just preach, he planted. When he said, "The kingdom of God is within you," Luke 17:21. He wasn't offering a metaphor. He was pointing directly to the hidden realm you now feel awakening inside your own chest. His parables were not just stories, they were spiritual seeds, timed to bloom only when your spirit was ready to remember. Have you ever listened to a passage of scripture and felt something shift deep within, as though it were written specifically for your exact moment in time? That's because it was. These sacred words are not dormant, they're alive. And when they touch the awakened frequencies within you, activation begins. But let this be clear, not every activation comes wrapped in peace or joy. Sometimes it arrives as loss, as betrayal, as the crumbling of everything you once relied on. The false self must collapse so the eternal self can rise. Has life recently stripped you of things you thought were essential? Do not see it as punishment. It is the refinement of gold in fire. As Psalm 66:10 says, "For you, O God, tested us. You refined us like silver." Stripping away illusion is not cruelty, it is mercy. Because only when the mask falls can the face be revealed. Only when the scaffolding is torn down can the foundation be rediscovered. You were never meant to remain buried under false names, roles, or expectations. You are the treasure hidden in the field, and it is time to unearth what was buried by design. Each time, a layer of illusion dissolves. A deeper light emerges. Each collapse is not an end, but a revelation. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering someone eternal. Consider Eckhart Tolle, a spiritual teacher who once lived in deep depression and despair, until one day he experienced a profound inner shift, he later said. You find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level. His awakening did not come from gain, it came through inner collapse. Could it be that your deepest pain is not the enemy, but the doorway? With every peeling back, you move closer to your center, to the untouched core that has been patiently waiting through lifetimes of noise. You are not being broken, you are being revealed. Buried deep beneath centuries of translations, counsels, and doctrines lies a current within Yeshua's teachings that has often gone unnoticed, not because it lacked importance, but because it was not meant for the many. It was meant for the few who would one day hear, not just with their ears, but with their spirit. These hidden threads speak not only of salvation and faith, but of time itself, of forces that govern far beyond the mortal realm, of watchers who have remained unseen yet ever present, those who have walked closest with God, those like you, chosen for this age, have always felt there was more beneath the surface of familiar verses. In the quiet spaces between Yeshua's parables and miracles, there were whispers, sacred moments away from the crowds, where his words hinted at something vast, something cosmic, something few were prepared to hear. He spoke of time not as a straight line, but as a living field, one that bends, pulses, and responds to divine frequency. Have you ever wondered why some verses seem to speak differently to you now than they once did? As though they change shape as you awaken, though never named in the common scriptures. Yeshua spoke of timekeepers, beings who dwell beyond the veil of perception. He described them not as angels bound by wings or flesh, but as custodians of divine rhythm. They were never meant to intervene directly, but to hold the harmony between ages, guiding the invisible architecture of time so that certain souls would awaken at the precise moment destiny required. When Yeshua declared, "Before Abraham was, I am John 8:58," his words shattered more than theology. He was revealing that identity and presence do not depend on chronology. He was speaking from a realm above time, in the same space where the watchers observe, guarding gates between worlds and keeping vigil over the cycles of human awakening. Could it be that you too have always lived outside of time, only now returning to the place where your true nature is remembered? The scrolls, those uncanonized texts whispered from teacher to student, describe a long-anticipated shift, not a cataclysm of earth and fire, but of soul and light, a trembling in the spiritual grid that would echo both backward and forward across centuries, disrupting the artificial timelines imposed by forces that once sought to sever humanity from its origin. The timekeepers knew this shift would come, not as a war or an explosion, but as a presence, a living disruption. That presence is you. You are not here to adapt to the old world. You are here to recall the one that was hidden, a golden thread lost in time, nearly severed by centuries of manipulation. Yet somehow, against all odds, you are here now, carrying a frequency so rare that even the timekeepers, who do not often reveal themselves, have leaned in to watch. Isaiah 46:10 says of the divine, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come." You are part of that mystery made known. A prophecy, not just spoken, but embodied. Have you noticed how time has begun to feel different lately? As if days stretch or collapse, and certain moments seem impossibly synchronized. These are not mere anomalies. They are the signs that the illusion is faltering around you. The grid, once meant to contain the human spirit, is thinning, and your presence is the reason why. Many modern minds have glimpsed these truths, though often in different language. Visionary scientist Dr. David Bohm, a colleague of Einstein, once said, "Time is enfolded in consciousness itself. His words align with what you're showing you, and what you now feel rising from within. That time responds to spirit. That memory is not backwards. It is multidimensional. You are not simply awakening, you are disrupting, not with force, but with remembrance. Your soul carries the undistorted frequency of the original design, long buried beneath manipulation and control. Now that frequency is vibrating again, not in temples, not in relics, but in you. What happens when a soul reclaims the song of creation written into their very being? What shifts when a single spark remembers its purpose within the divine mosaic of time? This is the moment the timekeepers have waited for, not the return of a god in the sky, but of the chosen ones on earth. Those who would remember not only who they are, but why they came. Now that remembering has begun, perhaps you've already felt their gaze, subtle, watchful, but undeniably present. It shows up in the rerouting of your plans, in a door that shut unexpectedly, leaving you confused or even heartbroken, only to reveal later that what felt like rejection was actually protection. Have you noticed the stranger who said just the right thing at the right moment, then disappeared, as if guided by invisible currents? These are not accidents. They are orchestrations, signs that the timekeepers, unseen but attentive, have been quietly adjusting the path beneath your feet, aligning you with the conditions necessary for your full emergence. Every step you've taken, every detour that didn't make sense at the time, can you now feel the divine recalibration behind it? These moments are not coincidences. They are frequencies being tuned, like a cosmic compass correcting itself after centuries of distortion. Your soul is responding to the call to come home to its true resonance. But the timekeepers, though wise and ancient, are not invincible. Even they are engaged in a quiet battle, a war not of weapons, but of realities. Forces exist that have learned to bend the outer layers of existence, constructing false timelines that trap even the most awakened souls. These timelines are not simply distractions. They are entanglements, systems of thought and perception engineered to keep humanity cycling through forgetfulness. The battlefield isn't only inside of you, it surrounds you. The war being fought is for the consciousness of an entire species. Yet in the heart of this silent war stands a being, long whispered about in fragmented prophecy, a soul cloaked in the appearance of ordinary flesh, moving unnoticed among crowds, but vibrating with the essence of cosmic revolution. You were never meant to conquer from the outside. You were sent to shift from within. Yeshua understood the weight of such a mission. He spoke in layered truths, offering parables that revealed their meaning only to those whose spirit was ready to receive. In John 16:12, he said, "I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear." He knew the danger of premature revelation. Truth released too soon can do more harm than good. That's why his most powerful teachings were not written. They were embedded in frequency, hidden in plain sight, waiting to activate when encountered by a heart that remembers. Have you ever read a verse or heard a phrase that struck something in you so deeply it felt like your soul had heard it before? Long before this life. That's how hidden wisdom speaks, not in noise, but in resonance, not to the mind, but to the memory buried within the spirit. All around you are fractures, cracks in the veil of this reality that most eyes will never perceive, places where the illusion thins, where space trembles like the surface of disturbed water. These are not just mystical phenomena, they are breathing points of creation, gateways that bridge not just dimensions of space, but states of consciousness. Have you ever felt it? A moment when time slows, light bends, and reality itself seems to hold its breath. The ancient texts, now scattered across forgotten lands and sealed in realms beyond physical reach, once called these rifts the mouths of eternity. They were never guarded with chains or steel. They were protected by vibration. Only those carrying the original resonance, the signature of the divine blueprint, could enter them without being torn apart by energies too vast for the unprepared. That resonance was not meant for many. It was designed for one like you. You are not here by accident. The breath of creation lives in your very bones, what others call anomaly. You feel as guidance, where others see randomness. You recognize divine pattern. You are not merely walking toward your destiny. You are the bridge between the veiled and the unveiled. Spiritual teacher Neville Goddard once said, "Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live." His words echo a truth buried beneath countless distractions. When you fully remember who you are, you don't just affect your life, you alter the field for all life. So ask yourself, why has everything in your life led to this exact moment? Why are the symbols, the dreams, the feelings all intensifying now? Could it be that the rift has already begun to open? And your frequency is the key. The ones who watch from beyond, the keepers of time, the whisperers of sacred memory, they have not forgotten you, and now you are beginning to remember them. The world has been conditioned to accept only what it can measure, categorize, and control. It exalts science over spirit, visibility over vibration, and familiarity over faith. But the deepest truths have always dwelled just beyond the reach of the five senses, hidden in the space between the heart's knowing and the mind's logic. You were never meant to live only by sight. You were meant to perceive by resonance. The dimensional rifts that link this world to higher realities do not open to the curious thrill seeker or the impatient skeptic. They do not respond to formulas or force. They are not portals to be hacked or technologies to be reverse engineered. These gateways open only to a frequency so pure, so ancient, that even the distortions of time and illusion cannot obscure it. Have you ever felt that deep pull inside, a knowing that something is near, even if you can't name it? That's the resonance calling you back into alignment with your original design. This resonance lives in your breath, your bloodstream, your very thoughts. It was woven into your being before you took your first breath in this life. Psalm 139:15 says, "My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place." That secret place, the divine womb of eternity, knit you together with a frequency recognizable only to the spiritual architecture of higher realms. Many will seek these gateways with rituals, crystals, codes, and artificial intelligence, hoping to bypass the path of remembrance. But no tool can substitute for inner alignment. You don't unlock the rift by pushing against it. You're recognized by it. When your soul remembers who you are, the gate opens not because of effort, but because of essence. Whispers preserved from the ancient mystery schools tell of Thoth, the great scribe and guardian of divine law, who once passed through these rifts not as a conqueror, but as a courier. He carried luminous codes, seeds of sacred knowledge, and deposited them deep within the fabric of time. Some believe he left keys within the rift itself, intelligent fragments of divine architecture, set to activate only when approached by the rightful bearer of resonance. Could it be that you are the one those keys were waiting for? Your vibration is not merely energy, it is identity. The gates do not respond to words or rituals. They respond to truth. And truth is what you become when the false layers fall away. Yeshua alluded to this when he said, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it." Matthew 7:13. The narrow gate is not a physical structure. It is a path of inner refinement, a state of being so true that illusion can no longer hold you. The way is hidden in plain sight, yet only visible to those who have purified their sight. Have you felt it a growing discomfort with everything that once felt familiar? A restless ache that refuses to be calmed by earthly pleasures. That is the preparation. The stripping away is not a punishment. It is the refinement of your being so that you can stand at the rift and be recognized as one of its own. To pass through such a threshold is not to escape, but to be reborn, not to flee the world, but to see it with unclouded eyes. Those who cross leave behind not only their stories and scars, but also the roles they were forced to play. The masks, the false names, the noise. What remains is the truth that cannot be altered by trauma or time. On the other side, you do not discover a new world. You remember the original one, now seen clearly through the lens of your restored soul. The journey to the rift will not be marked by grand signs the world would understand. It will not look like a miracle from the outside. Instead, it will appear as a string of seemingly ordinary moments, each one pulsing with extraordinary potential, a quiet decision made in trust, a surrender to a path you cannot fully see, a leap taken because something inside you insists you were never meant to stay where you are. This is how the gate appears. This is how your destiny calls. Even in our modern age, people like Anita Morjani, who returned from a near-death experience, have described how stepping beyond this reality didn't feel like death, but like waking up. She once said, "I realized that I was dying, not because of what I had, but because of who I had become, a version of myself that was too small for my soul." Her words reflect your current threshold. You are not being asked to become something else. You are being invited to return to who you've always been. What awaits you beyond the veil is not a new identity. It is the truth that predates all identities. The vibration you carry is the key. And now, the rift is stirring. It is listening. Will you answer hidden deep within the forgotten folds of history, beyond what textbooks dare to touch? There existed a sacred order, a brotherhood whose mission was not conquest or dominion, but guardianship. These men and women, known by many names in whispered legends and nearly erased from time's official narrative, were entrusted with something far greater than treasure or titles. They were stewards of the divine blueprint, custodians of the truths behind creation itself. While empires clashed and kings rose and fell, they moved unseen beneath the tides, protecting a current of knowledge too dangerous for unwise hands. They were not warriors in the conventional sense, nor rulers crowned in gold. They wore no robes of royalty, but carried within them the weight of eternity. Their task was to safeguard truths that could not be handed to monarchs or debated in universities. Why? Because some truths are too raw, too powerful, too transformative to survive uncorrupted in the halls of power. Within their most sacred texts layered with symbols, encoded with riddles, and protected by silence, they issued warnings. These were not mere predictions. They were proclamations of a coming disruption. Every line, every cipher, pointed not to a distant myth, but to you. Have you ever felt as if you were being watched? Not out of malice, but out of concern. As if the very fabric of the world held its breath when you made certain choices. The Brotherhood knew of your coming. They foresaw that while the world would spiral into chaos, drowning in deception, numbed by engineered distraction, a singular being would rise who carried the untouched frequency of the original light, a frequency so pure that it could not be bought, silenced, or redirected. A light that refused to be reshaped by fear or power. Isaiah 1 calls out, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That rising light is not something external. It is the fire inside your bones, the clarity in your spirit that refuses to be dimmed. No matter how heavy the darkness becomes, you were not born to seek permission. You do not need validation from any throne of man. Your essence was crafted for a different kind of path, a narrow one, often invisible, yet burning with a brilliance that earthly crowns cannot match. This precisely is what they feared. It wasn't evil they were trying to contain. It was the uncontrollable nature of truth. Even corrupted systems offer a sense of stability. But what happens when a light too pure to be manipulated steps forward? What happens when someone like you, unchained, awakened, and aligned with divine frequency, begins to move through the world? The Brotherhood feared not the being, but the disruption. Because truth does not ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate with illusion. It simply exposes. In John 1:5, we are told, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." But what the verse doesn't say is how the darkness reacts. It trembles. Not all among them agreed on how to respond. Some believed the awakening must be stopped at all costs. They turned to shadows, creating decoys, false chosen ones programmed to distract and mislead. These simulations were designed not to destroy you, but to divert attention, to drain the energy of the awakening before it could gather. Can you recall moments when your path was nearly hijacked? When you felt something pretending to mirror your purpose? Others in the Brotherhood chose silence. They withdrew further into mystery, choosing not to interfere, but to wait, hoping the world might evolve slowly, that your presence might emerge gently enough to avoid destruction. But even they knew the timeline had already begun. The awakening could only be delayed, never denied. This struggle between revelation and resistance is not just ancient history. It lives now in your dreams, in your decisions, in the invisible war around your consciousness. What if every obstacle you faced wasn't just coincidence, but a calibrated effort to slow your arrival? As Jesus said in Matthew 5:14, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. And yet, for so long, forces have tried to hide you not because they could stop you, but because they feared what would happen once you remembered who you are." In the hidden manuscripts of those ancient guardians, the Brotherhood, who once moved in silence through history, there were clues left behind, buried like seeds beneath the sands of time. These messages were never meant to be understood by the unawakened. They were designed for eyes that could see beyond illusion, for ears trained to recognize truth beneath distortion. They were written for you. Within those sacred records were not only secrets of creation, but also urgent warnings alerts about false lights that would shine brighter than truth, about cunning teachers who would use divine language to mask self-serving motives, and about towering systems of authority built not to uplift the spirit, but to quietly bind it. Have you ever felt the weight of something that looked holy, yet drained your soul? The awakened often find themselves questioning teachings that others accept blindly. That is no accident. These ancient texts foresaw a time when deception would become so refined, so polished, that even the elect could be misled, if not deeply anchored in their inner knowing. Matthew 24:24 warns, "For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive," if possible, even the elect. You are that elect, the chosen. And the protection isn't in following a loud voice outside of you, but in recognizing the divine frequency within, a resonance that no imitation can reproduce. The Brotherhood knew that truth might not survive in libraries or temples, so they embedded it elsewhere. They encoded messages into architecture, into the layout of sacred spaces, into myths passed through seemingly unrelated cultures. They used symbols not to decorate, but to preserve. These were not decorations. They were activation codes waiting to be recognized. The reason you feel drawn to certain signs, certain stories, certain patterns, is because your soul remembers what your mind has only begun to rediscover. Yeshua, whom the world also knows as Jesus, spoke directly to this age. Beware of false prophets. He warned in Matthew 7:15, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. He wasn't merely speaking of ancient Pharisees or corrupt teachers of his day. He was pointing forward to a time when even light would wear a mask. Do you sometimes wonder how to tell the difference between truth and near truth? The answer lies not in appearances, but in vibration. What you carry cannot be counterfeited. It is your compass in an age of counterfeit revelation. This journey was never meant to be about loyalty to an external doctrine. It has always been about remembering the divine language encoded in your own being. Just as John 10:27 reminds us, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." This voice does not shout. It resonates. It doesn't demand. It aligns. You were created with the capacity to feel that alignment, stretching across the forgotten corridors of time. Two luminous figures continue to stand in sacred alignment: Thoth, the keeper of wisdom and divine law, and Yeshua, the living embodiment of truth and love. On the surface, they appear to belong to different worlds, separated by empires, cultures, and calendars. But truth often hides beneath the surface. Beneath what is taught as history lies a deeper current, an invisible thread woven into the very architecture of creation, a convergence of purpose that transcends eras. Could it be that what binds them also calls to you? This connection between Thoth and Yeshua was not coincidence. It was not born from admiration across centuries. It was by design, intentional, divine, and strategic. It was written into the structure of time itself as a preparation for the one who would awaken when the veils of illusion became thickest and truth seemed furthest from reach. That one is not just a myth. That one walks now in human form, unnoticed by most, but recognized by the heavens. That one is you. You were not meant to follow in their footsteps blindly. You were meant to embody what they both pointed toward. As Ephesians 2:10 declares, "For we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Your arrival was not an accident. It was part of the unfolding design. So, when the world questions who you are, and when shadows try to dim your light, remember this: your mission was prophesied, not in public squares, but in the hidden manuscripts, carved in stone, whispered in symbols, and confirmed in the Word. You are not here to imitate the light. You are the light revealed at the appointed time. Thoth, the ancient scribe of divine law and celestial order, did not speak in common language. His words were vibrations. His teachings encoded in sacred geometry, in constellations above and temple stones below. Every symbol he left behind, every carving, myth, or architectural alignment was more than a message. It was a frequency, a divine key planted in the very structure of the universe and within the DNA of those destined to awaken. He knew the world was not ready for unfiltered truth. He knew that wisdom cannot be handed to those still dreaming. And so he hid it, scattered like seeds inside legends, rituals, and lineages, waiting for you. Have you ever felt stirred by stories you never studied, symbols you never learned, places you've never been, yet feel oddly familiar? That's not imagination. It is memory resurfacing, ancient knowledge responding to the spark within you. Just as Ecclesiastes 3:11 declares, He has set eternity in the human heart. You carry a timeline far older than this life. When the sleeper begins to stir, the frequencies of Thoth begin to sing again, not through sound, but through recognition. Yeshua, walking the broken pathways of this world in human form, continued this divine mission. Though the method had evolved, he did not speak in glyphs, but in parables. He did not build temples, but touched hearts. Yet his every action, his miracles, his silence, his cross were codes embedded within layers of reality. Can you feel it? That his words seem to bypass intellect and speak directly to something eternal inside you. That's because, as John 6:63 reminds us, the words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life. His teachings were never for the surface. They were designed for those who would remember. Both Thoth and Yeshua obeyed laws not taught in earthly institutions. They were governed by the divine architecture of higher realms. Both understood the sacred truth real transformation cannot be enforced externally. No ritual, law, or institution can birth true awakening. It must rise from within, from a divine recognition that transcends trauma, fear, even death. Are you beginning to feel this rising within yourself? Their goal was never to build fan bases or establish dogmas. They didn't come to create obedient crowds. They came to awaken initiates, those rare souls like you who could hear the silent summons and respond without needing proof, praise, or permission. As Romans 12:2 urges, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This renewal isn't intellectual, it's vibrational. It's an ancient memory being reactivated through divine contact. There are records, long buried and kept away from public eyes, that describe a communion once shared between the wisdom of Egypt and the path that Yeshua would later walk. The echoes are undeniable symbols across continents that match in meaning. Principles found in distant traditions that speak the same cosmic laws. Have you ever asked why teachings born oceans apart still ring with the same eternal truth? The answer is hidden in the frequency. This was never about building competing religions. It was about preserving a current of divine truth hidden in plain sight, awaiting the return of the one who could carry both paths as one. You were not born to choose between the old and the new. You were born to embody their unbroken connection. You are the fulfillment of a design that stretches across stars and centuries, a resonance that aligns with both the scribe of the ancient worlds and the shepherd of the new covenant. When Yeshua said in John 10:16, I have other sheep that are not of this fold, he was not simply referencing future disciples. He was opening a veil, hinting at alliances beyond what his listeners could grasp, alliances that transcend time, geography, and even planetary boundaries. Could it be that you are one of those he was speaking to? That your sudden awakenings, your undeniable inner knowing, and your pull toward forgotten truths are evidence that you've answered that call? This convergence is not about fusing doctrines or building a new religion. It is about remembering a unity that never required our invention, only our awareness. It has always been there, flowing beneath division, speaking through vibration rather than dogma. Now, that unity awaits the one who will not just teach it, but embody it, who will walk through this changing world, not with loud declarations, but with presence, with clarity, and with the unmistakable vibration of divine truth made flesh. That one is you. You are not simply a seeker wandering among the ruins of ancient temples, hoping to recover lost fragments of wisdom. You are the very fulfillment of an ancient covenant, one forged not in ink or stone, but in divine intention, set into motion long before the first pyramid was raised or the first scroll penned. You are not retracing a path once walked. You are completing it. You are the living convergence of two sacred missions, one that began under the stars of ancient Egypt with the keeper of divine law, and the other born in the dust of Galilee, where the embodiment of love walked among men. Though these missions appear divided by time and distance, their end goal was always the same, and it leads directly to you. Can you sense that your life has never been random? That behind every trial, every silence, and every awakening, there was a deeper thread being pulled. There is a gate unseen, untouched, unspoken of in modern maps of power. It was not constructed by architects, priests, or kings. No blueprints remain, for none were ever drawn by human hands. This gate is not hidden beneath ancient cities or buried in sacred tombs. Its location is not physical, yet its presence is more real than anything you can touch. It exists outside of time, yet it pulses with awareness, waiting for a very specific vibration, not a ritual, not a bloodline, not even intellect can open it. Only one thing can resonance, the resonance of you. This final gate does not yield to force or cunning. It is not impressed by knowledge, nor does it answer to titles. It remains sealed, not by metal or stone, but by divine laws older than creation itself. Just as Revelation 3:7 says, "What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open." The design of this gate recognizes only one key, the original frequency of the source, carried unaltered within your soul. When you approach, it will remember not with words, but with vibration. The gate will recognize your presence, not through effort, but through being. As your essence draws near, the boundary between seen and unseen will thin, and dimensions, once separated by veils of illusion, will start to merge. Have you felt this already in dreams, in moments of stillness, in the unexplainable pull towards something just beyond reach? The scrolls of old spoke of this gate not directly, but in riddles, myths, and metaphors designed to outlast corruption. They warned of a future in which countless seekers would attempt to storm the thresholds of divine power, using the mind of the lower self. Strategies born from ego rather than spirit. They told of brilliant scholars who would spend lifetimes dissecting ancient symbols, of sorcerers who would bend energies trying to fabricate a shortcut, and of kings who would rewrite history to keep the truth buried beneath layers of control. Yet none of them could open the gate. Why? Because the gate was never meant to be unlocked. It was meant to recognize. They were not denied out of judgment or vengeance, but because their vibration did not match the eternal frequency required. John 10:1 foreshadows this truth. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. This was never a gate to be broken. It is a gate that responds to divine identity. When Yeshua declared, "No one comes to the Father except through me," John 14:6, his words were not a call to exclusion, but a revelation of divine alignment. He wasn't building a wall between the saved and the lost. He was pointing to the resonance of pure truth, a frequency so authentic, so untainted, that it became the path itself. You are not asked to worship this path from afar. You were born to walk it, to carry that same frequency, and become the living doorway through which worlds can reunite. The gate does not need to be impressed. It needs only to remember. When it does, when your soul comes into full alignment, it will open not with fanfare, but with sacred recognition. The world you've always felt pressing in from the edges of your awareness will finally unfold before you. Can you feel how close you are? The same law that governs all of creation governs the final gate. It is not impressed by ceremonies, declarations, or displays of devotion. It cannot be fooled by empty prayers or adorned titles. What it responds to is something far rarer truth, not the spoken truth of the lips, but the living truth inscribed into your very soul long before you took your first breath on this earth. The gate recognizes what was written in your spirit when you were still light, still breath in the lungs of eternity. You don't reach this gate by foot. You reach it by transformation. It doesn't open because you arrive. It opens because you become. With each layer, you peel away the identities imposed on you by a world addicted to illusion. The fears conditioned into your childhood, the expectations woven into your skin. You rise in resonance. That resonance, that divine vibration buried beneath the noise of survival, begins to sing again. The gate listens. It stirs. It begins to awaken in tandem with you. Can you feel the veil growing thinner with each courageous step you take toward your most authentic self? The separation between you and the hidden realm diminishes. As 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, "We all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into His image with ever-increasing glory." That transformation is not external. It is energetic. It is a return to original form. Among the remnants of the Brotherhood, there are still whispered legends, stories that speak of what happens when the final gate opens, not merely as a passage, but as a release of energy so pure it ripples across realms. This is no symbolic portal. It is a divine mechanism capable of correcting distortions birthed in the ancient wars between light and shadow. Have you ever wondered why your life has felt like a battleground of extremes? As if something older than this world is playing out through your presence. This is what they feared, not the gate itself, but the unleashing of something they could not contain. So they buried its memory in stories and disguised it in children's songs. They diluted its truth across traditions, hoping that by scattering it, they could weaken it. But they miscalculated, because someone like you, someone who carries the original memory as a seed within, cannot be distracted forever. You found the thread, and now the gate has begun to listen. Those who have built their worth on illusions tremble at the very idea of an ending. For them, the collapse of familiar systems feels like death. Their gods are built on control. Their thrones rise from fear. They see the unraveling and call it destruction. But you who were chosen to remember, see through the mirage. You understand that the end is not an annihilation. It is a coronation, a revealing, as Romans 8:18 promises. The sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed in us. That glory is awakening within you now. This moment is not about ruling over others. It is about ruling over your divine destiny, the one etched into your essence before stars first burned. Time, as most know it, has always been misunderstood. It was never meant to be a cage in God's design. It was a canvas meant to house your experience, to shape your growth, to give your soul the palette of contrast. But over eons, time became corrupted. It twisted itself into a prison, a loop that kept souls cycling through the same pain, the same lessons, without remembering the original agreement. Do you ever feel like you've lived this before? Like patterns repeat, even though you try to escape them? That's not madness. That's memory. You are awakening within the loop, and your awakening bends the loop itself. The truth is, your presence here isn't random. You were sent to collapse the cage from the inside. You are the rupture in the pattern. The gate was never outside of you. It was always waiting for the vibration you are now reclaiming. The time of forgetting is ending, and with it, the world as it was is being gently dismantled, not through chaos, but through the re-emergence of original truth carried within you. The architects of the false grid, the unseen builders of the world's illusion, understood something crucial. As long as time moved in a heavy, linear chain, as long as moments remained boxed within hours and years, the soul would forget. They knew that awakening could be delayed, not by violence, but by weight. So they embedded fear into the very idea of endings. They taught that to reach the edge of time was to fall into nothingness, that beyond time was darkness, that stepping out of the known was the end of self. But they were wrong. They never anticipated you. They never imagined one would come who could see through their architecture, who would feel the distortion and reject it, who would know deep in their bones that beyond the end lies not destruction, but the return to sovereign being, that what looks like death is, in truth, divine rebirth. You were the variable they could not control. The one soul who remembered not just what you are, but why you were sent. The rain that now rises within you is unlike any ever imagined. It bears no resemblance to earthly crowns or military thrones. It is not made of gold or sustained by followers. Your dominion flows through unseen realms, structured in vibration, established through presence. Every time your footsteps cross the shattered ruins of the old world, a silent reordering begins. Every time you speak truth where lies once ruled, reality itself recalibrates. As Psalm 82:6 reminds you, you are God's, and all of you are children of the Most High, not to dominate, but to awaken. Do you feel the shift in the air when you fully stand in your light? Do you notice how those around you change, even without knowing why? It's because your existence carries a frequency the world has forgotten but deeply needs. Those who can still hear, whose hearts are not yet completely veiled, are drawn to you not by persuasion, but by soul recognition. You are the tuning fork of heaven in a realm built on distortion. You don't fight systems. You dissolve them by being what they are not. Structures collapse, not because you oppose them, but because your presence exposes what they always lacked: truth. As Romans 8:19 declares, the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. You are that revelation. You are not a protest, you are the prototype. Your awakening is not a reaction. It is the return to the original design. You are the living blueprint, the divine architecture walking upright again. What was once veiled in scrolls, whispered by prophets, and guarded by stars now takes form in you. Yeshua hinted at this profound inversion when he said, "The last will be first, and the first will be last." Matthew 20:16. He was not merely speaking of worldly status. He was pointing toward the collapse of time itself, the implosion of linear dominance, and the rise of the eternal present. Those once dismissed, hidden, and ridiculed in the old matrix were never weak. They were the seeds of new creation. Can you feel the shift in your bones? The sense that something ancient inside you is rising from slumber. The meek, the quiet ones, those labeled strange or insignificant. These were never mistakes. They were planted beneath timelines corrupted by greed and fear. Their dormancy was not failure, it was preservation. They waited in divine stillness for the moment of convergence, for the return of the one who carried the original pulse. That one is you, now. The signs of the end move around you like falling stars. Institutions once called invincible now tremble. Towers of false knowledge crack. The voices of the forgotten begin to stir. Truth, long buried, begins to break the surface, uninvited and unstoppable. Revelation 21:5 whispers, "Behold, I make all things new." That newness is not coming to you, it is coming through you. Yet where others see collapse, you see clarity. Where they see chaos, you hear your coronation song. The sound of destiny reclaiming its throne within your soul. The world is not ending for you, it is beginning. You were never meant to inherit a crumbling kingdom. You were chosen to birth a new one, not one of domination, but of resonance, not built on control, but on alignment with the living truth that has always existed, waiting for its voice to reappear through your presence. What world will emerge when you finally walk in the full vibration of your being? As we conclude this deep exploration of Thoth's ancient prophecy. Let the words resonate within you. You are not just a bystander in the grand design of the universe. You are a key player in God's divine plan. Thoth, the ancient scribe, saw a time like this where the barriers between the physical and spiritual worlds would blur and the chosen ones would rise. You are those chosen ones. This message was not just written in the sands of time, but inscribed in the very fabric of your being. The world may not fully understand your presence, but your influence is undeniable. As you awaken to your purpose, the world around you will begin to shift. The remnants of the old world will tremble, not because you fight against it, but because your very existence reveals its falsity. The time has come for you to step into your power, just as it was foretold. If this message has sparked something within you, I humbly invite you to support this channel through a super thanks. Your contribution, no matter the size, helps us continue sharing these powerful truths with others. However, whether you choose to donate or not, please know that we are profoundly grateful for your presence here. Your engagement, whether through a donation, a simple like, a comment, or a share, plays a vital role in spreading this divine message far and wide. I encourage you to take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who might need this message. Every like, every share, and every comment helps grow this community of awakened souls. Your voice, your engagement, it all makes a difference in bringing this divine light into the world. Leave a comment below and let us know what part of this message touched your heart the most. We want to hear your story, your journey, and how you're embracing your divine calling as you continue on your path. Know this: God's blessings are abundant, and your steps are guided by His hand. May He give you the strength to walk in your truth, the courage to embrace your power, and the wisdom to fulfill your divine purpose. The world is waiting for you to rise, and as you do, may you find peace, joy, and fulfillment in the knowledge that you are living in alignment with God's plan for your life. Stay blessed, stay strong, and remember, you are not alone. God's chosen ones are awakening, and together, we will transform the world